Thank you. So we are doing mission requisition at my school, and I don't know how it is at everybody's school. Oh, by the way, if you don't know me yet, I'm Carrie Toth. I am a Spanish teacher in rural Southern Illinois. This is year 32 for me, so I have two more after this year. I'm super excited. I'm not done with students. I mean, I feel excited still to go to school, even after all these years, but I feel very tired. I'm getting so old now. Look at my gray hair today. I'm getting so old now that I just feel very tired when I get done with the day at school. So I feel like I'm retiring not because, I'm so ready to get out of the classroom, but more so that I can just rest more, rest my weary bones. My school, we get $300 a year for a budget. So that sounds like, wow, you get a little money. But when you think about anything that you want to buy with a budget, all of the fun learning games like Kahoot those are $60, $70 a year. And so if you do a couple of those, that's eaten up half your budget already. So when I think about what I want to buy, it's really how can I get the maximum amount for the little bit of dollars that I have? So as you're starting that search for all of the right resources, I want you just to think about what things lead to fluency. What are the things you should look for in a resource? And then what are some strong resource ideas? So we are going to go, there we go. If you go to this bit.ly link, you get a folder of goodies. So this is your swag bag that you get today for visiting and for spending time with me. S2S Requisition. This is some free things that I thought you might like to try out in your classroom. There's a mix of things in Spanish and things in French. I tried to give you a song in Spanish. I don't have any French songs. I do need to work on that offering. I have a clip chat that's in Spanish and in French. I have a sample unit from our Huellas en Emprunt curriculums, and just some other miscellaneous things in there. So that's your little freebie goodie bag, S2S requisition. Sometimes Bitly is weird. Sometimes you can type it in and hit enter and it goes straight to
Yeah, I
the
got the stuff I
folder.
got home, it was already pre-finished, but it's the only code one I had. This is like the same price and it's okay better.
Okay. Sometimes it will go straight to the Google folder, and other times it will like have you do a click to get to the Google folder. So if it comes up with something that looks weird that says go on to your destination, go ahead and click there to go on. So the number one thing I would say about resources is that it's fun to look for things that kind of cycle content. So in our level one class, we do this fun little unit with the alphabet and different Latin American foods. So we try to put a food name to each letter. It's a way to use the alphabet to kind of spell things out or to, get those sounds, the phonics, but without teaching the alphabet as the content of the unit. Like the content of our unit is actually looking at different ingredients in foods and foods themselves that students might encounter if they're traveling, if they are eating at restaurants that are from, an Argentine restaurant or a Chilean restaurant, wherever they go to get some different food, hopefully they'll recognize some of the ingredients that we've shared with them. That's kind of their introduction to food. And then we move on. And in level two, we do a unit called ¿Qué es un foodie? So they have some basic like knowledge of some foods. And now when they come in, we're going to take that knowledge that they have of foods and we're going to look at what does it mean to actually be a foodie? Because I am not just, food is my life. I eat food when I'm happy. I eat food when I'm sad. I mean, I know that's not a healthy way to relate to food, but it's just that like food is a big part. When we get together as a family, we want to have foods that are like family favorites. So I kind of made up some different categories of different types of foodies. And so they could learn what it means to, find the cultural elements behind a food or like what are the ingredients. You all know those people that can just try something and go, oh, I taste cardamom. I'm not that person. But there are people that are like that, or people that like to go to different restaurants and then leave Yelp reviews. I love to get on restaurants and find Yelp reviews and then go to them and then take beautiful pictures of my plates and share them. So we walk through foodies in a little different way. Just because we learned foods in level one, it wasn't caught. So if you do teach a food unit, or if you're in a textbook, I think when we use a textbook, and I know you don't have a lot of control sometimes over what curriculum is in front of you, but sometimes it assumes in level one you taught all the names of the foods, so students know every name of every food, and they don't. Sometimes we have to really cycle the content that we're studying. So we have in level three, we come back and we do Comer para Vivir. This is part of the Huellas curriculum, but it can be used as an independent unit. So if you're doing some kind of food each year, you can use this independently of using the Huellas curriculum. In this one, we talk about different dietary lifestyles. So each year we're building a little bit more. And then by level four, we do the Conciencia Gastronómica, and we're talking about Jose Andres and his World Central Kitchen and the ways that we can address food insecurity and food deserts and people who are out there feeding hungry people. So cycling content just means finding resources from me or from whoever that lets you readdress the same topic, but in deeper and deeper layers. Because when taught isn't caught. Wait, I got that backwards. Taught isn't caught. Caught means it's taught. So if we go far enough, we can do that. We do have one food unit in our Emprunt curriculum for French teachers. It is the same as Comer para Vivir, food and dietary lifestyle. So whether you design a unit or you use a unit that somebody else has created, you want to recycle and build on vocabulary. So I think it's important in every unit. I feel like our textbook tends to go, okay, we're going to introduce all these new words and then the students know them and we never have to revisit them in 4 years of language class. When the truth is, they do learn parts of the vocab from every list. But as they move on to the next unit, a lot of that has not moved to their permanent memory. And so they're not able to use them again later. They can't come back up with them. So introduce new words in your vocab, but don't be afraid to reintroduce old words. When we study art, I tend to bring in the words I saw and like I'm impacted by things that maybe we saw in earlier units, but that will be helpful for them here because I'm going to teach them I have seen as part of this unit in level three. But also, I just want to remind them you already know how to say I saw. Here's how you say I have seen. So giving old words and new words together. My allergies, man, I'm coughing. You can also vary the grammar structures that are introduced. Think this is of really key importance in whatever resources we're doing, not being afraid. I remember clearly in level one when I had the Realidades textbook, a student was like, how do you say I went to my grandma's? And we were doing ear to go. And I was like, but we have to learn I go to my grandma's. Like, we need to talk about what you're doing right now. How hard would it have been for me to say, fui means I went? And that kid could have said the sentence that they wanted to say, but I was so focused on the grammar lesson that I needed to do for this particular day that I felt like I couldn't teach them something extra. Varying grammar structure doesn't mean that in one unit you teach a bunch of different verb conjugations and rules. All it means is that I can teach be in Spanish for I saw and he visto for I have seen in the same vocab sheet, and kids learn them as vocabulary and they go, oh, this is how I say I saw, and this is how I say I have seen. And I can do as much or as little. Well, that a means I have in Spanish. So if you put any other verb on here, it would be I have whatever. So varying the structures means you can introduce, even at level one, higher level structures for them to recognize as vocab items. What's the point of that? Well, when they get up into those upper levels, it's really hard to introduce just one tense in level one, present, two tenses in level two, the two pasts in Spanish, and I think French, you guys also have two past tenses. And then in level three and four, we introduce every other tense and they get so confused. But if as they've moved along, we've given them little bites of all of those different tenses, like, I want you to go. Now we have a little subjunctive, vocabulary structure that we've introduced. When we actually want to point out the rules, they have some knowledge that they can build on. They already know certain phrases using that verb tense or that verb form. Also, whatever we're doing when we're looking for resources, we want to look for resources that help us limit the amount of new words, like a lot, because there are, if you get a vocab list of clothing items, you can get 80 nouns just to talk about different articles of clothing, and a student can't acquire all of that at once. So it would be okay to pick out 20 of the most common items and leave some blanks on the sheet. So if you have a kid that says, well, I wear a lot of ties, could you tell me how to say tie? You can write it up on the board in Spanish and in English and French and in English, and then the kid can copy it down onto their own list. And now they have kind of a self-selected vocabulary list. And the words that they use the most of all are always the one that they add to the list themselves because it had some kind of meaning. If I had taken that chance back in the day to tell the kid that fui means I went, then that kid would have used fui a lot. But I cut her off and said, no, we got to say I go to my grandma's house. Don't forget about our friend, the Chuck It Bucket. This is our Chuck It Bucket, and it is good for everything. A Chuck It bucket is multi-purpose. So as you're looking at curriculum, as you're trying to decide what to adopt, what to keep in your lineup for next year, I always spend kind of the May. May is a slow down month at our school. Our seniors are done a week before our other kids. Exams are really only for the kids that didn't get a B or better in classes. And so we just don't have that many kids around at the end of the month of May. So I take that a little bit of extra time because once my seniors are gone, I have a couple extra periods. During exam time, I feel like I have a lot of free time. I just kind of go through my plans for the current year and think what went well, what didn't go well, so that while it's fresh in my mind and before I shut down, because in the summer I don't school. In the summer, my mind of school is shut off. I need that, time to hibernate. So I want to get it all done before I leave in May. I take my Chuck It bucket. You can chuck in some words from a unit. If you did a unit and you're like, man, kids really were not, this unit had transportation and also car parts. I know some textbooks have like unit 7 has 7A and 7B, and 7A is the transportation, and they were kind of interested in whether they'd been on a train or an airplane. But then 7B was about the different parts of their car, and everybody was like, do I need to know my rear view mirror? If you have that, you can chuck that vocabulary straight in the chuck it bucket. Kids are still going to be able to talk about the transportation they like, and how often are they really going to have to talk about the parts of their car? So if you come to something like school supplies, I chucked the whole unit. In Realidades, that was chapter two was like the biggest waste of my time. Kids didn't need to have a full chapter, 4 weeks on school supplies, when all year long, every time I picked up a pen, I could say, una pluma, un bolígrafo. This is your pen. Uh, get a pen, agarra, saca un bolígrafo, take out a pen. And then it eliminated that whole chapter, which frees up time. So it's not that I wasn't teaching those words. I just felt like I didn't have to dedicate a unit to that study. Same with chores. Really, the main thing about chores is they need to know take out and wash and clean. If they know those, and maybe dry, if they know those, they can talk about a lot of chores, a lot of jobs that they might do. And those are kind of flexible. Like there's a lot of reasons you would say clean or wash or dry or take out. Otherwise, like set the table, clear the table. When you tell kids, we're going to talk about chores, what do you do? What do they always say? I don't have any chores. Or my mom does all the chores. Or my only chore is crushing the cans. And so I didn't feel bad chucking that whole unit and making space for something like a reader study or to expand on something that's in the textbook or in the curriculum that my department's using by taking a resource that I found on my own and implementing it there. And then just working in those words that I selected as not being chuck it bucket words through other units of study. Our second little topic of five So we're going to look at cycling content. An important thing to do is to cycle content, whether it's recycling vocab, whether it is revisiting the same topic over different years to look at it from different angles. Our next idea is that it's really nice if our units can be content based. And I think Bill Van Patten is pretty passionate about task based learning. And basically, I feel like content based learning is that same idea. Instead of learning vocab without a reason, which we tend to do sometimes, like we need to do a list of vocab words about all the family members. Well, yes, it's nice for them to know their family members, but how can we then connect that to some piece of content that makes it a real world experience for them? Van Patten says that tasks don't have to necessarily be, okay, you're going to go through customs at the airport. Because for some of our kids, they're not ever going to go through customs at the airport. A task that you create for your classroom is a real world environment for them. So if there's something like for us, we do a unit of study on the elderly to kind of work our family vocab, especially they know brother, sister, mom, dad, all that stuff. But when we get up to grandparents and great grandparents, and how do you say like your great aunt and stuff, we do that in our little unit on the elderly in level 3 or in level 4, sorry. And in that level 4 content, we're able to connect that to our town and to the nursing home. And so for us, that becomes this really realistic content in a context that's real world tasks. So even though they might not, be working in a nursing home, they get this experience with something in our community that makes them really happy to share. I'm going to check the chat really quick. I noticed that there's a few chats in here and I just want to make sure. I think content-based learning, yes, Paulino, I think content-based learning, I'm going to say they're sisters. I don't think it's exactly the same as task-based learning, but I think the idea of task-based learning is that you have a realistic real-world task to, that all this learning is going to lead me to be able to do this thing. And content-based learning is basically taking the learning that we do, wrapping it in a content so that it has an application after they leave our class. One of the things that I did not do well in my early years teaching, I taught directly to the future teachers in my classroom. Everything that I was teaching was based around grammar and vocabulary, and we were plucking apart all the pieces of language and we were like analyzing them under the microscope separately. But then when I sent them out into the world, a lot of them didn't know how to put those back together. And I took this class called Understanding by Design, Grant Wiggins, Jay McTighe, and they talk about holistic learning. Like if you learn everything in its component parts, it's much harder for your brain then to synthesize with that information. So I think with content-based learning, I'm giving them a context in which that vocab and that grammar works. And now I'm not just teaching my future language teachers. I'm saying, hey, in this unit, we're talking about the elderly. So my future elder care workers are, or in this one, we're talking about medicines and healthcare cures, like things you wouldn't go to the doctor for, but maybe your grandma says gargle salt water or sings you sana sana colita de rana. What are the things that are remedies that we might use that works on my future medical professionals? And I've seen a great increase in my enrollment beyond my classroom. Like I have a lot of kids now that go on to study language in college because they feel like they see where that fits into their future career. So my content-based units often are not tied to one particular country in the Spanish speaking world. And a lot of times they even include countries from worldwide because they're more wrapped in content that will apply this to future uses of their language outside of my classroom. So, one example would be our art unit. It's our very first one, and this is free in your folder that I shared at the beginning in Spanish and in French. They are a little different. They have the same concept, but the Spanish one is based on a song and a music video, and the French one is based on a Coca-Cola commercial that has the exact same idea that there's a little guy jumping in and out of paintings. And we use this to learn to describe in detail. This is an AP level kind of skill that I want to develop in my students. We do this the very beginning of level three. I don't do the AP at my school. We have dual credit through our local community college, and our superintendent feels like offering dual credit is free to our students, and AP is, well, to be honest, AP is kind of a cash grab. Hallelujah in the chat if you agree, and I apologize if you work for AP. AP is its own animal, and it is very difficult for some students, and it is not necessarily realistic of what students can do in 4 years. And a lot of us have only 4 years with students. I have only 4 years with my students. I'm sure that they would do okay, maybe a 3 or a 4 on the AP, but I don't think that in 4 years it would be super easy without teaching directly to the test, and that's not really what I want to do. I have a question in the chat. Ani is using Huellas and wonders if you can combine or can you move the units out of order? Absolutely. All of the resources that I share today can stand alone. That's how they were initially created. I created them in my classroom using them with my students as standalones. And then I sat down and just kind of tried to map out what would be a good sequence that would allow them maybe to first see what does it mean to have sustainable production of chocolate, and then move on to sustainable production of palm oil, and then move on to how do we then take that sustainability and protect the biodiversity in our rainforest. So there are some different units, or like the food that I showed you at the beginning. Teaching comer para vivir is generally better. Like dietary lifestyles tends to go better before you talk about food deserts and food insecurities and people like World Central Kitchen, because those topics have a lot more complex thinking involved than do the topics at the level three, where they're talking, what is my dietary lifestyle and why. So Huellas, we start with an art unit, and we're building that skill of compare and contrast. And I really love the way that art does that, because they can compare and contrast, they can add detail through learning about the different artworks in the videos. Content based means you're taking more than a superficial glance. And this is something that I think sometimes units don't do. Sometimes you get just a superficial glance at something. Like at the end of a chapter, you read a little cultural topic that says, in Michoacan, Mexico, the monarch butterflies migrate and stay in the forest all winter long as they hibernate, and then they come back to the north. That's a very just glossed over superficial look at the monarchs. So having a content-based unit where you really dive into the life cycle of a monarch butterfly, the significance of monarchs in the culture in Michoacan, and especially at Day of the Dead, taking a more than a superficial glance is what gives a content-based unit an extra oomph over a unit that's really focused more on the vocabulary that you're trying to teach. So when you're looking at resources, keeping an eye out for things that dig a little deeper, maybe not as wide. I think that's one thing. It's great to say I want to talk about cities. There's so many things, like you could talk about green space, you could talk about street planning, like how do cities put those together? You could talk about population growth and overcrowding, but if you start to get too far in the weeds in any of those, you miss being able to focus in on one topic. So trying to find a content-based unit that's really pretty focused on one particular issue, or maybe an issue and some of its side issues as well. You want to be sure that you include diverse perspectives. One of the things that really bothered us about our art unit, our Huellas 1.1 Bajo la Mesa, we based it off a music video. It was a Morat and Sebastian Yatra music video called Bajo la Mesa. Every painting in the video was by a dead old white painter. And so when we made our bios and when we made our descriptions of the paintings, it's all the same people, Picasso and Van Gogh, and it didn't have any diverse perspectives. So we went back and we added a bio of Juan de Pareja. Juan de Pareja was a slave, and he worked under Goya. And he became such a great artist in his own right that he was granted his freedom. He probably still, like, things were not good necessarily for him, but being able to call attention to the fact that there were, even back in those days of the, painters that are in the Prado, there were black painters that weren't being recognized. Like he was working and giving someone else credit for his work. We also talk about how it's nice to compare to other painters. I loved the painter who did the Obama's presidential portraits. So when we are doing our practices before we do the assessment, I bring in some examples of his work and we compare, those to another one of the paintings that we looked at in the unit. So making sure that your unit offers some diversity and also that you add in some of your own where it's not there is an important thing to do. And also that it has specific goals for growth. We want our units to lead our students to growing in their proficiency. So, like I said, the art unit, the goal in that unit is that at the end, they will understand what it means to compare and contrast and describe in detail. Kids are going to go, and this includes your heritage and native speakers, when they sit down to take a test like Apple, Stamp, AP. A kid's first instinct is to say it the easiest and quickest way possible. So if I say, describe what you see in this painting, or if they see it on a test like Stamp or Apple, every kid, whether they know a ton of Spanish or just what's been taught, oh, whoops, I went the wrong way. Go back. Or just what they've learned in class, they're going to look at it and go, I see a woman, she has a scarf on her head and she has a pearl. And then they're going to want to move on because those are the really obvious things. Does that describe the painting? Yes, it does. But that's how a novice would describe the painting in 2 or 3 sentences. Telling a novice from an intermediate is relatively easy if you can take all of those sentences, even an intermediate low. If they make a series of sentences and you can basically move them around like Jenga blocks, and it doesn't really change the overall meaning of what they've said, then you're looking at either a late novice or an early intermediate. As soon as their writing is substantive and has some transition words that will not allow you to move their sentences around. So if they say there's a girl, the girl has a scarf on her head, the girl has an earring. It doesn't matter really. There's a girl with a scarf on her head. She's a female. She has a pearl earring. You can move those around and it doesn't change really what they've said. But if they say, when I look at this painting, I see a girl. The girl is in the center and is wearing a scarf on her head. The scarf is blue and yellow. Now we can't move the order of those because we have to know that there's a scarf before we can know that it's blue and yellow. We have to know there's a girl before we can say that she's wearing a scarf on her head. So teaching them that idea that to grow their language, they need to go from simple descriptions to adding some details. We learn the words for in the front of the painting, like the foreground. We learn the center. We learn the background. They're not trained art critics, so they don't always even know where those parts are. So we have to actually look in the initial slideshow for my unit. I have a little highlighted thing like this is the background of the painting using Mona Lisa because that one's a really great one for background, center, and foreground. So at the end, their goal is to be able to look at this and just milk every detail out of their painting and compare it to some other painting at the end. And we'll talk more about this unit when we talk about assessments as well. Do you have any questions to pop in the chat before we go on to topic 3? Topic 3 is activities. Oh, Lucy, that's great. Lucy says she uses the art unit first, and then all of her other units, she can add art that they can talk about because now they've developed the skill. That is cycling of content. Like if you take some content that you've taught and you're bringing it back for another unit so that kids get more practice with it, that's good stuff. Active. We're going to talk about follow-ups and keeping learning active because we know very well it is really easy to say kids these days and then whatever ending goes on there. But the truth is, no matter how we feel like things were when we were in school, I can tell you for sure, I did not have a device back in high school. I did not do a ton of learning in all of my classes because I was either talking when I shouldn't have been or writing notes. And if you are of a certain age, like me, you have written the notes as well, where you take the folder and you fold it all up like a little football, and then you pass it to your friend either in class or between classes. I spent a lot of distracted time. So, as much as I would love to look at my students and say, everything you're doing is you being distracted, I did that in 1989, 90 as a senior. So, back in the 1900s. So, oh, yes, Lori, you made them too. Those football notes were good times. I do feel bad for our students that they are never going to have those memories of a little note folded up like a football it's a good feeling to get one of those. And I might actually write one today to give to somebody when we go back to school because I feel like that would be a great nostalgic little feeling to get one again. So, what I like to do in the classroom, I can't change who kids are now. Like, since if you've ever, gosh, now the name of the book just left my mind. It's the one about the technology. Oh gosh, I should have. I see, this is what happens to me. If I try to have a thought, it just goes right out of my head. Read this book about technology addiction in students, and they were talking about what happened when the iPhone landed in 2010. Like, there is a divide before. My daughter was a before. She was born in 1997. So her first two phones were one was just like a flip phone, and one was the slider phone. Anxious generations. That's it. The anxious generation. Hers was a slider phone. She got an iPhone in high school, late high school. So she became more interested in social media as a junior or senior. By the time my son came along, and he was getting into junior high and it was time for him to get a phone. His first phone was an iPhone. He was not super interested in social media, so that was great for me, but our students today, they get an Android or an iPhone that has full access to the internet and terrifying things and also really great things. So it's good and bad, but we can't change. Like, that divide has been opened. So as much as we want to post online and say kids these days, we can't. Like, we're not going to change it. It's only going to go in broader and broader directions. So we have to figure out, how do we work with who we've got these days. So I like just keeping activity as part of units. So if you can find things, if all of your follow-ups are worksheets, just think about it. You can take a worksheet and you can turn it into a lot of these different things. Sometimes we're just trapped in the curriculum that our district has given to us, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. We cannot control all the factors in our classroom. I have really good kids this year, but I don't always. There are some years that I have really, really tough groups to work with, and sometimes it's because they're so quiet that I can't get even one kid to be responsive to me. And sometimes it's the opposite. Everybody wants to touch each other. Everybody has a nickname for everybody else. Like, they're very distracting to each other. And to me, one thing that has truly helped me kind of level out are active follow-ups, because when we sit one-on-one and I'm the teacher and they're the students, quiet kids are in that element of uncomfortability. They don't want to talk out loud to me with the class listening. They feel uncomfortable giving an opinion because somebody might laugh. There are a lot of, sorry, things are falling over on my desk. There are a lot of things that contribute to that effective filter being high. When they're squirrely, sometimes they're not paying attention to me because they're too busy distracting each other. So, any kind of follow up that can use processing and movement. What you see in the picture is a follow up that I use called floor memory. It's so dumb. Like, you can do this. Let's say you have a worksheet. It does take a little setup the first time you make some of these things, but I promise you it's worth it. And if you have a homeroom or a advisory period where you have students for a little bit of an extended period of time where they can work with you, like cutting, It's so nice. I have a personal laminator in my room, so floor memory is actually one of the easiest things I make. You can take a question and an answer. So let's say you have a 10 question worksheet that you have always used, but you know that kids either cheat on it or they're bored by it. Take that worksheet, copy and paste the questions and answers onto individual sheets, blow up the font so that it basically fills in the sheet. And then I run it through my laminator. I don't have cardstock in my printer at school. Like we don't have access to cardstock. So I just print it on plain white paper. But then we do have access to these colored papers. So I lay a white paper and a colored paper on top of it, run it through the laminator, and then I run them all through. This is a 4 by 5. So this would be a 20 question, 20 answer. You can do it with illustrations. So we might have, be studying the ocean. That's actually what this one is. We talk about ocean plastics and they're trying to match up the creature with the way it's affected by ocean plastics. The letters and numbers are just there. We put those on. They kind of get wiped off between. But when kids play memory, a lot of them remember by location. And if a bunch of the big cards are missing, then things start to get shuffled around and they're not quite sure which card was in which spot anymore. As you get more board cleared out, doing this has really helped us keep them like the ones stay kind of above the twos. And it helps kids remember it was 3B that was the one that had the crab on it. And then I just found the thing about eating off the bottom of the ocean. So, this is a good way to process. It lets them think about the information, review the information, and it allows for movement. Everybody has to be paying attention because if somebody flips over two that aren't a pair, now they have to remember where that one was that wasn't part of the pair. So it's a good way to review. Also, having follow-ups. Oh, we do need to create a football notes activity as a follow-up activity. That's a really good idea. We could even teach them we could start a new generation of kids folding football notes. I really like this idea. I also feel like we need to be sure that we're blooming their language through Bloom's taxonomy. So, a lot of things that I did when I was teaching with Realidades were just remember. And remember is the lowest rung on the ladder of Bloom's taxonomy. All I was asking them was, what does this word mean? Or what is the form of this verb? Asking them to do things like create with language, that's high level Bloom's taxonomy. So some follow ups may be remember. This one, the floor memory is remembering, but some of these other ones that we're going to talk about are going to be not so remembering. This is an activity that Nellie Hughes created. Nellie Hughes is the author of Keiko, and she has a new one coming out very soon. So keep an eye on her Comprendes Mendes MX Instagram account for when she launches Leona. This is like a tic-tac-toe game. But the team A is one color marker and team B is one color marker, or they can use solo cups. And each time they get a correct answer, they can put their cup in. But then I throw in some kind of stumpers where they would have to, like if they answer the stumper, then they might be able to move a cup from the other team, or they might be able to eliminate a cup from the other team. So she calls it hula hoop gato. It is in my Espiritu de Xolotl teacher's guide as a credited game from her. She allowed me to use it in my teacher's guide. We had so much fun playing because the questions aren't just who was the main character. It was asking them to kind of synthesize with the information. So, uh, why do you think Sholi was uncomfortable with his friends? And they would have to say, because he was shy and he didn't feel like he was important. So now they're kind of synthesizing info that they know from the book to answer a question that's not just a direct who's the main character, what was his name, where did he go. I love this activity I got stuff popping up in the chat. Okay. Oh, yeah, football notes. Thank you, Lucy. This activity is called Freeze Find, and it is a follow-up, and it is very much a processing of information. When we give students things to read, we can't really say, okay, you read chapter one or you read this reading. Now go back and read it again because it's really good for you to read it twice. Because every time you read something a second time, you catch a little detail that you didn't see before. We even know that's true with viewing things. If you watch a movie and then you watch it again later and you go, oh, I didn't even notice that the first time. That's kind of what we want to get them to do. So for freeze find, as we get later into a reader that we're reading, and this one was again out of the Espiritu de Charlotte reader, and it's also in the French version, L'Esprit de Melusine, and that one's the teacher's guide will be coming very, very soon. The book is ready and on Amazon. This one, they actually look up. So I give them a kind of a line directly from the text that would be easy to act out. And we did this about chapter 6, I believe. So I picked out things that would be super easy to act out, super visual. And students came up in groups of 2 or 3, freeze, find, freeze like burr, cold, freeze, find. So groups of 2 or 3 come up and they pull out. Okay, wait, let me rewind. I break the class up into several different groups. So this is my Spanish 2 group. In that class, I have 24 kids. We have 5 groups in their class. We have 4 groups of 5 and a group of 4. So they form a circle with their group and everybody has a copy of the book in their hands. Now we've already read 6 chapters. So basically I'm just before we finish off this book, I want to go back and I want to really review. I want my resource, my book to, I want to milk it for the best possible exposure to all of this language and structures and ideas. So this is a way to get them rereading. So from the groups, I need 3 volunteers to act these out. And so I say, okay, only 1 volunteer per group, but I need 3 volunteers from 3 different groups. If you get 3 from one group, they might have some kind of inside plan, where all the other teams find it unfair. If you keep it 3 kids from 3 different groups, then it stays really fair because they all want their group to get it right. So what these kids drew was the paper that they drew from my cup, that they pulled from my cup, said the gods wanted to sacrifice themselves in the fire to create the sun and the moon. Well, they come with me out in the hallway. We talk about what they might do. They come back inside. You can see kind of behind them. My room is actually a disaster all the time because the kids really love to pull out all kinds of props and stuff, whatever activity we're doing. So they've pulled out these props and then they freeze just like this. While they're frozen, just like this, where you can clearly see there's a moon and a sun, all of the groups, they have to be totally silent. All of the groups start to dig through their book to find the line that these students are frozen in. It's so great. Everybody gets a different prompt. Yes, Cecilia, thank you for asking that. Do they get a different prompt? I have a little cup with 8 different events. So each time a new group of 3 comes up, I take the old prompt, I set it on my desk, and the next kid draws a new prompt, and we go out in the hall and we figure out what ideas they might have for staging it. We step back in and they freeze, and then the kids go back to looking in their books. So each group has 1 whiteboard and 1 marker. So they've drawn a prompt, they've drawn, the gods wanted to sacrifice themselves in the fire to create the sun and the moon. All the kids are looking through the book, but the best part is that you can see them going, no, 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 it was before this, it was after this. So their narrative is such an important part of any proficiency test our kids will ever take. Being able to narrate a story in an order. So having them know, like, this comes first, this comes last, this comes second, like, that's really great practice for them going back through a story and being able to identify when different events occurred. So they're digging into these readers. As soon as one group thinks that they have it, they shout out, we have it in Spanish. So lo tenemos, lo tenemos. And then I set a timer for 1 minute. Now, every other group only has 1 minute to find a sentence that they think will work for it. At the end of the round, when the timer goes off, Any group that has the right sentence gets a point. And if it's the wrong sentence, even if it was really close, it has to be the sentence that I picked for it to count as a point. So it is super fun to play and it's a great way to review and it's active. They are they're on, like their hands are busy. They're flipping through those books. It keeps everybody interested and involved. And since the volunteers are from the different groups, they always have somebody to cheer from. Like I said, I have five different groups in this particular class. And so it was only three kids, but the next round it would, be one from your group. So there's a lot of incentive to stay engaged with these activities. This one is actually a follow-up that I really like to do. I hang up different things in the hallway, and the kids have a little response sheet on their iPad, and they can kind of walk around and look. So in this one, we were talking about homes, housing from different places around the world. And we were just looking at like, where is it common to have a lot of kind of luxury possessions in a sense, like toys and there's a book and it's all kinds of homes from around the world and the photographer he's gone to family homes. It's getting pretty old. It was maybe 1999 that he did it, so I would love to see it updated. He had the families bring all of their possessions to in front of their house and then pose. And the families sat closest to the possessions that were most important to them. So it was very interesting for students to see the house that they did as an example, one of the houses they did as an example in the United States, was all the front yard was just full of toys and like those plastic playhouses and a plastic pool. And there were probably 50 pairs of shoes outside. And then a family in Bhutan who's sitting with their possessions. They have their livestock, they have their blankets and kitchen utensils and stuff in the middle. At the front, they're sitting with their religious emblems. They have different ceremonial things. They have a picture. They have like beads and stuff. So for them, what they're sitting next to is religious objects versus what the family in the United States was sitting next to, which would be like their TV and their couch and all of their comfort items. And so it was a really great perspective on how sometimes possessions can distract us from important things. We looked at, there was a family that was seated just around all of their kitchen utensils, like time together with the family cooking and preparing this food. This is like our most important thing. And, what would your family put at the front of your picture? Because we know houses in the United States wouldn't all do the same thing that this family did, and houses in Bhutan wouldn't all do the same thing this family did. But we looked at who has livestock, who has a lot of space around their house, who lives in an urban area. So it let us really break down where people live around the world and also, where we live and what we might value. Our next little stop is in reading. And when we read with students, we want to read cultural things. We for sure want to expose them to culture. We want to expose them to authentic resources. That is our goal. That when they leave us, they'll be able to read in whatever Spanish speaking country, French speaking country they visit. We want to prepare them for that. And to do that, it's okay to include those learner centered resources as well, as that's part of the pathway to reading. We want to read within our units of study, but we also want to try to bring in readers. I feel like readers have done such a wonderful thing for my program. We have grown in our proficiency over the years because of the readers that we use. My first year using readers, our speaking and writing scores on the Apple exam were really, really dismal. We were right at the novice 4, intermediate 1 level after 4 years for most kids. And that was kind of a wake up. Like, why is our speaking and our writing was a little better, more probably an average of about I2, but the speaking was just so low. So I started to add some more readers. We had just been reading one reader per class, but I added in the next year, I added another reader, and the next year I added another reader. And now in level 1, we do 3. In levels 2, 3, and 4, we do 4 readers a year. By doing that, we're immersing ourselves in that idea of narrative. When they're testing, they ask them things like, tell me about a Christmas where you got a gift you really loved and why it was important to you. That's a narrative. It's it's them telling a story. So the more familiar they are with how to tell and retell a story, the more experience they have when it comes time for them to tell a story about themselves. So, having reading includes adding in reader units where they get immersed in some culture and they get to have a full story that gives them a lot to talk about. I feel like sometimes a unit that's just 3 days or 5 days long, they haven't had enough time to simmer in the new vocab, the new grammar concepts that we've been, like AV. So I have seen if we only use it for 3 or 4 days and then move on, they're not really going to internalize that. But with our unit, we do the art unit and then we follow it up reading Christy Placido's Frida Kahlo reader. So now we have an extended period of almost 7 weeks that we're talking in the beginning of our level 3 class about describing things in detail about art, about how art reflects culture and daily life, and they're getting to practice using those same structures over and over again. So adding in reading, whether it's the reader alone or as part of a unit. This is one of our readings from the Spanish and from the French versions of the curriculum, Emprunt and Huellas. The French one is from the art unit, and it basically is a way to take an authentic resource and break it down for students. So I found an article about why art affects us emotionally. And I pulled out information that was important, but my students, for them, the article itself. Oh, Cecilia, I just saw your. Oh, no, I did see that before. Sorry. I read it differently now that I had changed slides. I did see that. So in the art unit, I feel like the article was way too difficult for level 3s. They are just at the first week of school or first month of school. Level 3s are just big level 2s. Like they haven't actually learned anything new to make them a level 3. They're a true level 2. So giving them an article from the internet, there's so much noise that can easily distract them and make them feel unsuccessful. When you're a novice, early intermediate, it's very easy to be beaten down by all the things you don't know. So I thought, let's pull out the things that they would recognize or be able to decode. So I did a little changing around of some sentences. I pulled out main facts. I kind of worded them for learners. And we have an article that had information that was important for learners, but adapted for the kids or for natives, but that was adapted for the kids in my class. Same with Malala. We do a unit on education in Spanish too in the WAS curriculum. We talk about Malala and what happened to her in her school. I don't know if you have read her book. My name is Malala. I am Malala. Oh, it's such a lovely book. Sad and gut-wrenching about her pursuit of studying in spite of some really horrible things that happened to her as a result. So she's an activist, and that's an important story to read, even though she's not a Spanish speaker. So we read this biography, and I've told it in Spanish so that they'll be able to understand her story and how much sometimes we take for granted the education that we have at our fingertips. For level 1s, sometimes it's just a little meme. Like I can find a meme online that's made for native speakers by native speakers, and I can be like, oh, we've had viajar, we've had vida, travel, life. Añaden is new, but all I have to do is tell them añaden means add. So when my kids come in, I'm like, can we decode this? If I tell you añaden means add, and they're like, oh, that well, okay, los is the ones like people that travel add life to life. Yes, that's it. So we can celebrate being able to read this authentic piece that's right in the pocket for level 1s. I tell you every time anybody comes to a session with me, do not go searching hours and hours for memes. If you need some memes for your classroom, you email me and I will share my Dropbox folder. I have something like 7 years worth of memes for a different meme every day, all year long, for your whiteboard or for your smartboard. Uh, you don't need to do the searching. It has been done. I'm happy to take that weight off your plate. And then reader wise, these are my little twins. They're fraternal twins. One's Spanish, one's French. The story in El Espíritu de Xolo, which is written, you could probably read it with late level one kids. I did not, I don't have level ones. I just started at level two. So I read it with my twos this year. It was super successful with them. They understood everything. And then the French version, L'Esprit de Melusine, so they're kind of companions, sister stories, because they are not the same. It is not a translation. Xolotl is about an axolotl that lives in Lake Xochimilco. Well, it does not make sense to make that French because that would be all Spanish speaking culture, all Mexican culture. So for the French version, we adapted to the Loire River Valley. And Leo is a lutin de eau. He's a little water sprite who lives in the Loire. And he's going on an adventure to find out about his ancestors. Shirley is going on an adventure to find out about his ancestors. And while there are parallels, they have different journeys because they're in different places. So these books have been a great addition to our reading because I made the lesson plans. I made the teacher's guide a lesson plan. So it walks through how am I going to make sure that I cycle the vocab, that we review those vocab and grammar structures throughout. How can I make sure that my activities have fun follow-ups? How can I be sure that I'm assessing the right way, that the reading's at the right pace? So I feel like for level two for sure, early level three, or probably late level one, these would be a great fit if you're looking to add something reading wise into the classroom that puts a cultural element into a story about kind of a identity quest. These both are creatures that are feeling inadequate maybe or like they're small and they find out at the end that small people aren't invaluable. Like you're little, but you are very special. And so it gives you the chance to talk a little bit about identity. I read the full biography written by Malala. And then the reading is a biography that I wrote based on information in an article about her online. Paulino asked which version of Malala did I read, and the one that I read was the full biography that she wrote. Um, but now that I know there's another version, I probably need to read that too because I was very, very fascinated by her. And our last little category is assessment. And teachers, I know what you're thinking. This is the hardest part of our job, knowing how to assess our students. And so we want to look at assessments that reflect proficiency. How do we be sure that our assessment not only reflects student proficiency, but also identifies what the appropriate proficiency level is for that group of students? Thank you so much, Lucy and Paulino, for being in the chat. I appreciate you guys so much. That's so helpful. Lucy and Paulino have been dropping in links to things that I've mentioned for me, and that is such a great help. Thank you. So when we assess, we want to reflect on their proficiency. So let's say you're in a level one class and it's the end of first semester, and maybe you read the book Brandon Brown Wants a Dog, or maybe you read Christy Placido's Esmeralda La Tortuguita Marina. At the end of that, if you have them, okay, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to tell me all the things you remember about the story. You've got to keep in mind that for some level ones, they are going to be very quick at acquisition. They will acquire things that are like Brandon Brown Wants a Dog. The whole book is Brandon Brown wants a dog. Brandon Brown wants a dog. Jake has a dog. They will acquire those structures really, really well, really fast. So you may have some that immediately are producing at intermediate low proficiency. But you're also going to have a hardy section of students who are probably going to fall around novice mid or novice high. So they use acquired words and phrases in context, but maybe they forget their verbs. If you teach Spanish 1 or French 1, or any language 1, you know what I'm talking about. Well, if your language has verbs that conjugate, the kids forget the verbs and they sound like little cavemen. Brandon dog, Brandon big dog. And that is how they sound. And that is a normal milestone in their proficiency journey. So that would put them about novice mid. If they get their verbs in there, Brandon has a dog, Brandon wants a dog, or Jake has a dog, Brandon wants a dog, the dog is big. That's novice high. They're producing very short, simple sentences. If they can string those together, Brandon Brown wants a dog, he wants a big dog, he wants a dog like Jake's dog. Now they're intermediate low. Uh, well, they need to use some different verbs probably. He wants a dog, Jake has a dog, Brandon wants a dog like Jake's dog. He goes to the park to look for a dog. That's simple, simple sentences, but they're a string of simple sentences. I can supply limited information on familiar topics. With less familiar topics, there's a lot of decrease in accuracy. At the novice high, they can supply a little more information. With less familiar topics, they still decrease in accuracy. About intermediate, they start to be a little more accurate when it's not a topic they're familiar with. But I really try not to ask them to write a whole lot until they have something big that they can talk about. At this novice mid level, it can be difficult even for you to understand their language production. The funny thing is, sometimes it's not that hard for their classmates. Like you go, what did that just say? And a classmate already has their hand up to answer the question the kid asked. So sometimes the interlanguage they have developed is harder for us. We also want our assessments to encourage creativity and risk taking. So I'm going to tell you a fun fact. The national averages, I'm going to show you them next, show that our students, after 4 years of language study, are really speaking in the intermediate low range on average. Like they're in the intermediate low to right at the border of intermediate mid range after 4 years of language study. So when we think about that, intermediate mids need a teacher, need someone that's familiar with language learners to understand their production. That's basically what we're producing in language classrooms. And I will tell you what I think a strong reason why we are so focused on correcting errors in student language. We make them afraid to make mistakes. If they're afraid to make mistakes, they don't take a lot of risks. They tend to stick to the simplest things and the things they know. They can make errors all the way into advanced low, which is where our teacher candidates are after a study abroad. They still expect them to make errors in present, in past, in future, but less, of course. Like, they're going to be more like 85% accurate at that level. But it takes a lot of pressure off of us. What we want to do is try to find ways, how can we encourage them to be creative, to take risks, to produce the maximum amount of language that they can? Because the more they mess around with recombining all these different things that we've taught them, they're going to land on some things that really work for them and they're going to become more proficient. So, this assessment that you see right here in our medicine or cure unit, and this is the next one up for the French classes. So we are about to adapt this summer. We're doing this one and we're doing the chocolate one, Dame Dame Chocolate, are both going to get adapted this summer. So in this unit, they've learned about being a doctor. Like they know how to ask questions to diagnose a patient. So they create a character. The student's job is for the character to have a story, or as the kids say, that he has lore, like his legend of how he got to be. So they have a story, and the doctors are in charge of taking care of the patient and finding out the story by asking questions. So this is Dr. Doofenshmirtz. So the first doctor is going to have half my class is going to have their patients hanging up on the wall and the other half are going to be doctors. So the first doctor will come up and they'll say, "Hello, my name is Dr. Whoever. What is your name?" And they say, "I'm Dr. Doofenshmirtz." And, well, do you have any kind of pain? And then Dr. Doofenshmirtz does seem to have a broken hand. So I'm going to say Dr. Doofenshmirtz will probably tell them, yes, I have pain in my hand. At some point, the doctor needs to say, when did you start noticing the symptoms? How did the accident occur? What happened to your hand? Dr. Doofenshmirtz has to have a little story kind of prepared to tell them, I was riding my bike and I fell off my bike at the park and my hand was very sore. And since I was out at the park when I fell, a bee stung me on my nose. So he goes through his story, and then the doctor can ask some follow-up questions and give some recommendations on how to feel better. I said what I said about proficiency a little early because I wanted you to. I'm going to tell you how I grade this, and I don't want you to fall off of your chair and get an injury because I don't have any kind of like presenter's workman's comp or anything. I can't. If you hold on tight to your table before I tell you this, I just give everybody full credit if they do the speaking assignment that I gave them. So, if as I'm walking around listening, and I walk around for a good 15 minutes between all of these doctors presenting, as I'm walking around listening, if my doctors are asking questions and if my patients are telling their story, it doesn't matter if they make mistakes. They're intermediates, they're going to make a ton of mistakes. But if they're able to tell their story and the other person can understand it, awesome. You are doing exactly the task I set before you. You get full credit. My test results tell me that and I'm going to show them to you, I promise. Kind of hard to see them in this little bubble, but I'll tell you about them. My test results tell me that you're going to be an intermediate low, which means you can basically say a series of simple sentences, not at the paragraph level. If you're talking over and over for the 15 minutes that you've definitely done more than that. So you earned beyond what this requirement was. So just make sure that your goals, oh, I went the wrong way again, are realistic. So we're going to take a little look-see here. This is from the STAMP exam. This is their data collection. This was from their 23-24 testing season, and the 24-25 is out now. So you can go, if you just Google Avant STAMP 2024-25 results, you can find the little chart. You have to look because it's broken down language by language, but these are the Spanish results. If you look across here, reading is always the highest. And so listening for this is level one, level two, level three, level four. Can you see my cursor? Yes. Okay. Thank you. This is level one, two, three, and four. So in listening, it's 5.26. I can't remember the exact number in reading, but it's something like 5.76. On the stamp test, a one is novice low, a two is novice mid, a three is novice high. So what they're telling us is that in listening, most Spanish one students end their Spanish 1 year at 3.18, so at a novice high. And reading is a little higher, but it's still in the three range. Speaking, they're a two, they're novice mid, they're cave people. If you have Spanish ones that are saying, me carry, uh, me eat pizza, lot pizza. That is a novice mid. They are right on target. So while we're tempted to go, oh, you didn't say this, you didn't say this, all that does is make them nervous to try again. So if we can honor the fact that they're speaking, nothing says you can't speak with your students when they're in level one. A silent period is nice as far as taking points off, though, because they do have to really have a lot of language to produce it. Look at level two. Even at the end of level two, the average of all the stamp tests, their speaking is still landing at 2.7, novice mid, creeping toward novice high. And here in level three at the end, the average gets to that 4.8. And then in level four, it's 4.26, I believe was the end of that number. It is not very high. And so it takes a lot of pressure off of us to feel like they have to take points off for everything. Like we have to really hyper analyze everything. They get a lot more comfortable when we don't do that. Listening, they land in the five range. So a five would be four is an intermediate low, 5 is an intermediate mid, and 6 is an intermediate high. Look how long it takes. Now, my students are different because of the way that I teach my class. Our listening at the end of level 3, our listening and reading skills are almost always landing in the 5 range as an average for our own personal class. Sometimes even a little closer to the 6 range because we do a lot of reading and listening. Our writing scores did fall above this year, the average of 4.7. I think we had 4.96 on our Spanish 4's writing average. Our speaking scores fell pretty in line. I think we were at 399 in level 3, and then we were at like 421, and it was 426, I believe, was on their chart. So we were really close on the average on the speaking. I do have kind of an interesting group. I have some that did, not as well as in years past, but it's because they stayed in language for 4 years when they might not have in years past. So remember, your average will also be affected a little by students who just love being part of your classroom and continue to take it. So just keep your expectations really realistic. This is what nationally it looks like our students are doing. And if we can remember that, it makes grading easier on us. We get tired. We have so many things. You have family and you have dogs you want to hug or walk, and you have TV shows that you're addicted to. The Beauty, we just finished. Anybody watch The Beauty? That was a very, very weird, dark show. It was good, but very weird. But I need some time to do things like that to keep going in the classroom. So grading realistically really helps. Another great thing to do with assessment is to offer them a choice. And the great thing about kids is that they're easily manipulated into feeling like they have a choice when technically you didn't give them too much of a choice. It just was a sort of choice. So I'll try to explain that to you. This is actually an example of an assessment we just got done with. We did our foodie unit, and at the end of the foodie unit, they were supposed to just make a one pager, which is basically an infographic of all the information that they learned in the foodie unit about. And look at this, we did probaría and comería in level 2. That is some good old conditional verbs in level 2. And my best students were asking, can I say bebería to say would drink? And I say, yes, do that. So we did get some back to vocabulary, like offering choices of more advanced verb tenses so that they start to feel like, oh, this isn't a big deal. Like, I don't have to study some big conjugation to be able to use this in my writing. So we want to offer choice. And an example of offering choice would be speaking or writing. I don't care how my students present their work a lot of times. There are reasons why a student might prefer to only speak or prefer to only write. I have a boy in my Spanish 4 right now who is amazing at Spanish. He actually got a 5 on the writing and speaking. So he got the global seal of biliteracy this year as a Spanish 4. Um, he's not the best in the class. We have some that got the Illinois State seal at the intermediate high, but he's a really good student, and his handwriting is like a doctor. Like, he has a great future as a doctor. I can't read what he writes. So when he's given the choice, he would prefer to speak because his penmanship is not great. Now, if he's typing, it's fine because he can type. It's just that he can't write things down. And I had another girl in the past that didn't like the way she spelled. So like she really struggled with spelling, but was not afraid to speak. And the opposite is also true. You have some kids that would die before they wanted to speak to you, even by yourself. So offering them that choice gives them the illusion that they're getting to pick something even when they're not. And that actually makes them feel confident. We do seal by literacy in Missouri with the apple. Can you share a little bit about the global seal and how that works? Yes, global seal is free. So it's another honor. I don't know what Missouri state seal is set out, but Illinois, our state seal is set at intermediate high. Lots of schools are only 4 years. So intermediate high is a really high bar. That's what our teaching candidates tend to score after 4 years of college Spanish without a study abroad. So we're talking about pushing an enormous amount of proficiency in 4 years. So at Missouri if you guys are at intermediate mid, then the seal of biliteracy would just be another honor at that level. For us, it gives us another, oh, I3. So it would be above your I3. Um, so in Illinois, we offer any intermediate score, I1 to I5, or on the stamp, that would be 456. Any of those intermediate scores get the state commendation toward biliteracy. If they score an I4 on Apple or a 5 on the stamp, they can get the global seal of biliteracy. If they score an I5 on the stamp or a 6 on the, or sorry, I5 on Apple, or a 6 on the stamp, that's intermediate high. That would be the state seal of biliteracy in Illinois. And then the advanced low, if they can score that across all four modes. And that's another thing that depends state to state. In Illinois, ours has to be in every mode. The score, the highest score you get in every mode. So if they have I5, 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 I4, they only qualify at the I4 level. So they have to sustain it across all four communication modes. If they get the advanced low, then there's a second layer of the global seal that they can earn. So it's free to get it. You send in your student scores, they send it back, they get that. Mine love it because for an additional $7, you can order medals and they have like the global seal insignia. And my students are allowed, they don't get to wear very much at our graduation. Like our superintendent is very particular about what things they wear adorning themselves during graduation, but the global seal medals are one of the things that he will allow. So they love that they can wear this medal. It looks so nice on them when they wear it. So I like being able to tier the award. The thing is, we just call it micro credentialing. Everything that gives them a goal, like this year I got this, and next year I want to get this award. It helps keep them in the class and keep them pushing to increase their own proficiency. Also, you can vary on an assessment. You can give them choice in the style of presentation. I don't like to grade the same thing over and over again. So this little one pager is nice because every kid is going to come up with a different way to like graphically organize the material. I give them full choice over how they present it on this thing. But in other times, I tell them you can choose to write a blog post or just a traditional old essay, or you can make it into an infographic. But the infographic has to be like the kind of infographic that has paragraphs of information and not just like words and short sentences. So you can make it infographic style. They can make a news report in a magazine spread or something. However, you want to communicate the information to me. Then, as I'm grading them, I get one magazine layout, I get a couple of infographics, I get 3 or 4 that do just the essay, I get some that want to tackle the blog post. So it lets you, as you're reading, have a little bit of variety, which is good for us too when we're tired of reading. And groupings. I like to break up how we group on our assessments. If we're doing any kind of a speaking assessment, there's 3 main ways that I do those. My husband is a 1 semester of Spanish dropout. If you know me and have seen me present before, you know this about him. This man can say, tengo bigote, I have a mustache. He can say, lechuga, por favor, for lettuce on his burger. And he can say, no cebolla, no onions, because these are the important things in his life. I have a mustache. I need lettuce. I don't like onions. That's all he's got. And it's because he took a Spanish class his freshman year. And at the end of first semester, the teacher made them all stand in front of the class and present about a minute about themselves. My husband would not do that today. He is a 56-year-old man. If you told him he had to stand up in front of the group of teachers at our faculty meeting at school, he would die. He would fall all the way through the floor into the basement of our school, and we would never see him again. He's not ever going to be the guy that talks in front of people. So he ran out of Spanish, which he might have been good at, because he didn't want to have to do that. So I like to do things. And plus, if everybody presents in class for a day, it takes a whole day to get through a presentation. And sometimes you have one class that's 15 and one class that's 35. And so you have one day in this class and then 2.5 days in this class, and you're trying to figure out how to balance that. Mine, choice one, is that we do individual. So if they're doing an individual presentation, first I start a timer for 5 minutes and they pick anything in my whole classroom and they talk to it for 5 minutes about their topic. If we've read a book, they're going to retell the story in the book for 5 minutes to the thing on the wall. When that timer goes off, then they have to go back to their seats and just partner up with, if they're in the front row, they'll partner with the person behind them in the second row. If they're in the back row, there's nobody behind my third row, so they just partner with the person beside them in their row. Now I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes and they're going to take turns telling their presentation to that person. So person A goes the whole timer of 3 minutes telling them. Person B goes the whole timer of 3 minutes. At any time, they can help each other. Like if somebody gets hung up and can't think of anything else to say, the partner can help them with hints. And then at the end of the second timer, I set a 2 minute timer, and this is our actual, this is it presentation timer. They are going to grab their iPad. In our Schoology software, they can record a video directly, or I tell them record on your camera roll because if Schoology has a meltdown and loses your video, you're going to be super mad. So just record it to your camera roll, upload it to Schoology, upload it to Google, and send me the link. They're going to just tell it to their iPad. I have to see their eyeballs. I don't have to, for some reason, kids are so weird, you guys. For some reason, they will like hold it so that I can only, they hold it really close so I can only see their eyeballs. Like I can't see their mouth or their whole face. They just feel so uncomfortable letting me see their whole face, but I'm fine as long as I can see your eyes so I can see you're not reading something. It's fine. And they just tell me the story right there. As I'm grading those, that is so easy to grade. I have them record 2 minutes. In the first minute, you know exactly, what grade they deserve. Did they talk the full 2 minutes? As you listen to it, is it, them retelling the story? Did they tell you in English about prom? So I can listen solid for a minute, then just kind of scan the end of the video, make sure they didn't like, do something else. You know who you have to listen to all of. Like there's always some clown in there that if you don't listen to it, they probably said something crazy in there that, like, hey, how are you? I'm going to see if you're listening to this or not. So I always listen to those all the way through. But that would be one type of grouping, just a solo, like they kind of by themselves with a partner, then by themselves again. A second type of grouping would be a pair working together. So they don't really have all the prep work, but let's say we're doing the ocean plastics unit and they have a t-shirt design that they have to talk about. They can't really hold their iPad and talk about their t-shirt design. So their partner holds their iPad and records them, and then they take turns and hold the other partners. Or like the doctors, one doctor presents while the other one, or one patient presents their story while the other person is a doctor, and then they switch roles, and now we have new patients with new doctors. So a pairs type of grouping. Or we sometimes do speed dating where they're in a group of 4 or 5. I told you my Spanish 2 has 4 groups of 5 and a group of 4. So they would circle up with their group of 4 or 5. Person one is going to do their presentation, whatever it is, no notes, do their presentation. The other kids in the group can ask them follow-up questions, and then we go to the next person. And I just set a 2 minute timer each time. They're presenting in a very low stress, small group environment, and they don't have to worry about me. And this is great because I can listen to the doctor ones. And to this one, I can listen as they're presenting and I don't have to take anything home to grade later. If I do an individual one, then I do have work to take home to grade later. But the bigger group, 2s or 5s, I don't have to grade them because I'm doing that the whole time that they're taking turns presenting. So don't forget though, on these assessments, superstars are anomalies. They fall outside of the boundaries of what that stamp test shows. We all have them, but we can't get so enraptured by them that we forget that the regular kids are doing great. Like it is great to be hitting right on the goal. You've stayed in this class, you've gotten to where you're at this point. Awesome for you for being right on track. This is an example. This is Brody, and he is doing his tell it to something with a face. So he actually has a picture of Billy La Bufanda from Senor Woolley in his hand. We have like a little Billy in the room. So he's telling Billy there. This is Carson when we did this is one of the assessment for the art unit. They not only do they talk about a painting, they also have to reproduce the painting. So when we come back later after the assessment, we can compare. And what I want you to notice in the assessment, they are obsessed with the fact that Mona Lisa has her hands. Like that is the front, the foreground of the painting is like her hands. And then there's Mona Lisa, and then you've got your center of the painting with some hills and roads, and then in the background there's like a lake and forest. So he's not even sitting, but he's got his hands there because we determined that the girl with the pearl earring is just, you see her shoulders, but no hands, and Mona Lisa you do. So when we compare him to the Mona Lisa, we can say in the background he has the forest, Mona Lisa had the forest. In the foreground, Carson's color of shirt is different, but he is wearing colores oscuros, dark colors like she was. We see Carson's hands like we saw Mona Lisa's hands. So you can add elements where you can I added this to the test, not so much so that they would compare this to their painting. They're comparing their painting to another one we talked about in class so that afterwards we can have fun with our art talk comparing their paintings to the originals. And then on assessments to help them level up, I have this little smart word basket. And all of these words, I will go back. This is not in your folder yet, but I will put it in as soon as I stop the recording on this. These smart words help them amp their writing up. It's things like transition words and connecting words and time marker words. And instead of I want, say tengo ganas, say like I have a desire to. So expanding their vocabulary so they're not just constantly pulling out level 1 and 2 structures. So I just printed these up. You do not have to print them on different colors of paper. I just am weird like that. And then they get them out every time we write. They pull these out and it helps them to model intermediate level writing where their sentences can't be moved around. If I can move their sentences around, it's not intermediate. So this helps them reach that goal. So when you assess doing things like that. So your don't forgets, this is your little finger tied around, work within your context. If you have a curriculum you're forced to use, I want you to take these ideas and find places you can use the chuck it bucket, number 2 there, to throw away things and bring in stuff you're actually passionate about. If you have no curriculum that you're required to use, I want to encourage you to put anything that doesn't feel, what is it in what does Marie Kondo say? If it doesn't bring you joy, put it in the chuck it bucket and try to have your classroom be a place where you teach things that bring you joy. And try to find things that are pretty low prep and low stress because that helps you balance life. So the more complete a resource can be, the better. I want to thank you for spending an hour and a half on your Friday with me. That was so kind of you to come. And for the whole month of April, if you visit my somewhere2share.com and click on the shop link, I put in a coupon code you can use, Mission 26, no capitals, just Mission 26. It'll give you 20% off your entire purchase. I know there are tons of resources out there. I'm not saying don't look at other people's resources. I do want to say that Somewhere to Share, we offer not only our level 3 and 4 curriculums, Huellas and Emprunts, which is a growing French curriculum. We now offer our Espíritu de Xolotl book is available on Somewhere to Share. If you would like to just check it out, it's on Amazon. El Espíritu de Xolotl, with me as the author. I don't have the copies in hand. They have been shipped and they should be here to me by the end of this month. And so I'm planning to be shipping books from my website between May 1st and 15th. If you're looking to buy a class set, this is really good because I was able to print them myself. And so it eliminates a ton of fees that Amazon applies. So I have a really great discounting system. They're $11, 12 on Amazon, 11 on my website. 10 if you buy 10 to 19 copies, 9 if you buy 20 to 29 copies, and if you buy 30 plus, they're $8 a piece. So thank you, Paulino. So they are very much discounted at a class set. So since they have that own tiered discounting system, they are excluded from the Mission 26. But any of my other curriculum is available with that Mission 26, 20% off your entire purchase. So thank you so much. I will go back and put those resources for the little writing tickets into your folder. It is 11, so you're free to go. If you have any questions, I am happy to stay on a little longer. Thank you, Paulino. Thank you. I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions you have. Thanks again, Lucy Paulino, for your help in the chat. That was so, so appreciated. And if you have questions, you don't even have to chat. Just pop right up and ask away. I'll just come back over here and
It's Cecilia. I had a the freeze find. Do you have that on your blog?
I
'Cause
do. If you look back in the chat, Lucy shared, was that a blog
Oh,
post I did,
perfect.
Lucy?
Okay, I'll look for it because I like
Yes,
it,
it
but I
was.
don't.
Yes.
Yeah,
About
I don't think I
halfway
have it.
up the chat, there is
Okay,
actually it's in reply to your comment. So you may be able to grab it just by
perfect.
finding
Okay,
your
thank you
comment.
so much.
No problem.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Hi,
Bye.
Carrie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How about you?
Good, 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 good. I just had a question about readers in general.
Yes.
I start level 4 with Bajo La Mesa, and then I do the Frida reader.
Yes.
And then this year, since this is only my second year using Wayes and Somos, kind of moving to that acquisition driven instruction, I think by next year we'll be kind of like all settled up with like my level threes. This year I was still really in Somos 1 with them. And so next year, my hope is to be really like Somos 1 and levels 1 and 2, Somos 2 and level 3, and then really focusing on way yes. And kind of like what you were saying about picking, I mean, it's not that, I mean, I enjoy all the units, but like
Right.
I want to do some of the ones in way yes too. And I just like, I haven't even gotten there. And I'm like, I want to do the Jose Andres like unit. And so I'm kind
Yes.
of looking at like mapping out the level 4 now, because I'll feel like finally those kids are going to have that really great foundation
I
and
love
will
it.
be ready for that. But I did like El Keiko in January. And like I really like doing the readers, but I will say one like question that I have about it is that like my students, they love it when I read it to them.
Mine too.
And I know that like there's not always tons of value in having kids like there is value in them practicing pronunciation, but also they're focused on that. And if somebody's hearing something, like how do you vary the way that you read? Like I have the audio version, so like sometimes I'll be like, let's try to listen to the audio so that you're not always listening to me. But they just love when I read, because obviously like we do the voices, we're there, we're
Yep.
walking around the room, I'm asking like, oh, what do you think about that? So it's just like, how do I just want to make sure I'm always like keeping them on their toes a little bit.
That's one of the things in the Espiritu de Xolo teacher's guide. That was one of the things I really wanted to kind of target in on. Like, how do I read differently to give students? So, some of my favorites would be I read aloud a lot. Here's basically my like baseline. If the chapter doesn't have some event that is going to affect the whole rest of the reader. For example, in Bananas, the brothers go fishing and they eat some poisoned fish. If I have the kids reading that on their own and they see the word envenenado and they don't look it up and they don't know that it's poison, now they're going to be moving on to chapter 7 and they don't really know the magnitude of what happened in chapter 6. So that would be a chapter I would read like hand holding their way through. But earlier in the book, there's a chapter where the kids get distracted by an airplane that's crop dusting the bananas. That's one that, okay, it's okay for them because I just wanted to introduce the idea of the pesticides, and pesticides is a cognate. So they're not going to miss the point. So I might do one good choice is inside circle, outside circle, or Christy Placido calls it mixing bowl reading. And Lucy may be able to look on my blog. I think maybe, did I just do a blog post about that? Maybe I didn't. Mixing bowl reading You have an inner circle of kids, half your class. So my Spanish twos are 24, so there'd be 12 in the middle and 12 on the outside facing each other, like sitting in chairs. And we start at page one of the reader. And I say, okay, you go until I stop the music. So I have really light music playing in the background. They do not have to translate. They just need to make sure they both understand what it says. So a lot of times they don't have to read it in Spanish. They just need to make sure they know what it says. So a lot of times they're just translating to each other what the meanings of the chapter are. Soon as the music stops, the outside person is going to rotate one spot. But they also are going to, in their book, they're going to mark how far they got with their finger. And when they sit down with their next partner, whoever got the least far, so if I got here, but you got here, we're going to move back up to where you were. So for the guy on the outside circle that might be super fast, this is going to keep them from slamming through the whole book in two rotations. They're going to have to keep going back to wherever everybody else was. And then they all get finished pretty much at the same time. In the very last round, you might have one group that's 20 or 30 seconds behind everybody, but it does kind of level the playing field. So that is a great way. And they like to do that a time or two a book. Another way is popcorn reading. My twos, everybody but Logan hates popcorn reading, but Logan loves it so much that we've made a rule that if they're just not feeling it that day, and Logan wants to popcorn read, we will popcorn read. But if they can't take it or if they don't want to take the popcorn that gets popped to them, they can pop it back to Logan. And he loves
Okay,
it.
there
It's
you
like
go. There
it
you go.
makes his day. And so we do a popcorn read every book at some point to give Logan his chance to shine because he loves doing it as popcorn reading. And then I probably read about 70% of the chapters aloud to them.
Okay.
And we do audiobook. If there's with the Sholot book, we did audiobook. Okay, I didn't have a blog post then about Mixing Bowl. I know that on my Instagram, there's some a
Yeah.
reel of Mixing Bowl. Um, it's in my pinned reels. It's actually the very first one of my pinned reels on somewhere.to.share on Instagram.
Okay.
The when we were doing Sholot, I can't even remember what activity I was going to tell you about. So I got distracted by the Mixing Bowl.
No, but that's helpful to know
Oh,
that
the
you do.
audiobook. There's one chapter where the voices all talk to him, and the guy that recorded my audio did a really great job with the voices. So that was fun to be able to play the audio of that chapter and have all the little voices.
Nice. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Oh, thanks. There's
I found the Instagram
Thank you.
once I knew where to look.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yes, thank you for sharing your strategies. I really agree with those, but I have an issue. I have a rubric that is shared by the district. So that's where I struggle because I want to value what my students are producing, but I have to follow the rubric and the rubric really pay attention or get points down because of the errors. What can I do?
Well, in an ideal world, you would be able to talk to the other educators about proficiency stuff, but this is not an ideal world. And so sometimes we're really tied into. So my thought would be, is there something that you could focus on in each? If you have to really be attentively looking for errors, could there be some particular error that you make your error of focus? So in the art unit, let's say you're trying to use a visto, I have seen, and you really want the kids to use that. Could that be, this was our goal for this unit. So could that be the error that you're looking for? Maybe you taught them that, but you also taught them, I have visited as well. I've visited, um, I've painted, I haven't painted. Like those are their
Mhm.
like main core words. Can you let the rest of the errors kind of, maybe say, hey, I noticed that you put an apostrophe S. We don't use those. And
Uh-huh.
then really just focus the rubric onto whatever because kids are pretty good with one goal. to work on for the next time, or with understanding, my one goal this time is to really try and use this and use it well. I feel like they're able to do that a lot better than if they're trying to manage keeping a whole bunch of juggling balls in the air.
And grammar. Yeah, you're right. Because like in this moment, we're grading something about what they did in their favorite trip. And I'm working on that, like they doing the correct yo fui o nosotros fuimos. However, I see some kids saying me llamo es, and our mentor in the district told us like, oh, that is not a minor. I was like, okay, so as you said, I'm looking for the past tense conjugation, or I'm looking for other errors like grammar things.
Right. I would say because that is such a common error to say me llamo es.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, because in their brain, is means S. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not, they
Mm-hmm.
just haven't made that connection that this is actually an expression and not a literal word for word. So it takes a while for that to drop off. And so I would say that would be something if you use a little rubric like the one I showed you with the goals in the middle, you could write over to the side, hey, when you put me llamo es, you're saying I call myself is. So
Mm-hmm.
don't
Mm-hmm.
forget to leave the S off, and just gentle reminders, but not
Okay.
necessarily taking points off. Like and then not, it saves you time to just be looking for direct correction. You're only looking for uses of the present perfect. I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
whatever ones you've been working on. And then that way it makes your grading time shorter, but also it lets them try to be creative. And what
Yeah.
if they use one that you didn't say, like you did? I've seen, I've visited, I've painted, I haven't painted, but some kid writes, I have goed. And they put it wrong. You know what I mean? Like they say
Okay.
the
Yeah.
wrong form, like e vallado or something. That's not really an error. That's them taking a big risk to try to apply
Mm-hmm.
this rule to something new. So that would be a place to go, oh man, I love what you did here. This is the irregular form. Or, well, I guess the Ito is not really irregular, but this is the form you meant to have, where you can kind of be encouraging and with it as well, so that they'll continue to seek to take risks.
Thank you so much.
You're so
That
welcome.
makes sense.
I hope that helped. Oh, you got it all in one doc. Thank you. I will download your doc and I will put it into the folder.
It's not pretty. I just
I don't
quickly
care. That's fine.
copy and paste it, but I'll be happy to share that with
That's
you.
perfect. That's perfect. If you share that with me, then I will save it into that folder and I will put it in with those other things I promised you.
Do you want me to just put it on the chat?
Yeah, if you want to drop it in the chat, I'll just
Okay.
go to it from there.
As
Thank you guys.
always, you are the best as always,
Oh,
Carrie.
thank you so much. I'm just ooh.
You're just not
I
allowed to retire.
Cecilia,
I
it didn't give us access. It says we need to
Oh.
request access.
Carrie, do you want to request, or who do I give?
yes,
do I give
I
access
requested
to?
access and I will copy her doc and then I will put it into your folder and then you will all have access.
Okay, let's see. How do I?
Check your email. It should have sent you.
Yeah, I'm there. Oh, here, hold on. Hold on, where did it? I don't think it gave it to you, did it?
Let me see.
The editor, my file, share. Okay,
There we
now
go.
it should have. Okay.
Yes, now I have access. Great. I am going to make a copy of this right now.
Paula, if you're still there, I'll share it with you. I know Paula.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie.
You're so
Have
welcome. Thank you,
a wonderful
everybody,
day.
for being so helpful today. Man.
So my question was, do you have a different rubric for presentational writing versus presentational speaking, or do you use the same one?
I just don't take any points off in speaking. If they do the work, they get the points. And if they
Okay.
don't do the work, they know it. And I talk to them. I mean, it is so rare that somebody is literally not doing the work that's kind of a let's go out in the hallway and have a talk about this. And most of the time, if they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it at all. Like if the ones that are there and that are going to do it are going to try. and trying is what I'm asking them to do. And 2 minutes after it, especially if you do the 5 and the 3, when it gets time to do their recording for 2 minutes, they feel like that's nothing. Like it goes so fast for them to have the just 2 minutes that they're like, man, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be.
So do you use a different rubric for the different modes, or is it the same one
No, I
for all
pretty
of them?
much use that rubric for everything, but I did put a couple of other rubrics that I use from time to time into your folder. And you
Okay.
would have those from other presentations. Things like, what kind of feedback do you want? That's particularly, and Paula, that might be something that your department even looks at.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a non-threatening kind of way to encourage your department to let students kind of pick their feedback. So on this rubric, it says, I want you to correct every error. So, okay, this kid really does want me to go through and correct everything for them. But some kids just want to see the rubric, like mark my rubric and only tell me, did I have enough vocab? Did I give enough detail? Was it comprehensible to you? And then some kids just want a note, like tell me something nice about my writing. They don't even care to know necessarily the rubric. They just want you to say something kind to them. So, giving them there is another way to bring in a little bit of choice.
And Carrie, you'll be sending the recording.
Yes, I'm gonna
Right? Okay,
actually
perfect.
download this and upload it to YouTube, and then I'll put the recording for everybody that was here. I'll put the recording straight into the folder because you have already seen it and you know about the folder. And then
Okay.
I'll send out another newsletter with the recording so that
Okay.
anybody that wants to get access to that can watch again. And you're welcome to share it with districts. Like, feel free. This is a free recording, so please share the folder. Oh, sorry, Anna, you came in a little later. Oh, let me put my
It's
slide.
on the document also that I on the
Oh,
Word doc that I
okay.
shared with you. It's that link is
But
in
she
there.
can't
So
get in. I put the document in the folder and she can't get in the folder. Yeah. I'm gonna scoot back here, Anna, really quick to the slide.
it's on the top of the document too that I
Oh,
shared
okay.
with you. It's yeah. Do you want me to just put it on the chat?
There we go. In
Got
there.
it?
Oh, thank you so much. I am so grateful to you for coming. And like I said, the link is open with the coupon on somewhere2share.com. I know in May, TPT usually has a sale
Mm-hmm.
in May. So my stuff on TPT would be on sale in May. If you have, like, let's say your requisitions are due sometime between May 1st and 31st, and the mission coupon expiring is going to keep you from being able to use it, please just email me because I mean, I will make a little side coupon for you so that you don't miss out just because your district has particularly strict rules on when you can use your requisition money. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a really great day. And
Mm-hmm.
I will get this uploaded to YouTube.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.